Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video I want to have a look at Arbitrum, but before I do, I first want to thank today's sponsor, FairDesk. Now FairDesk is an exchange, and if you're interested you can click the link in the description for a 5% deposit bonus, and with no KYC required you can start trading straight away. But getting straight into Arbitrum, well, first of all, macro review, we can see it's not been doing great since its launch. I mean, it was launched in April, so it's not an old altcoin, it's very young in terms of, well, you know, age. But we can see it's been a bit of a choppy ride ever since, but that's fair, that's to be expected. It's been a bull run, and to be fair, from launch it's only dropped currently about 38%, 37%, which isn't terrible at all. From peak to valley, trough to whatever, it's about 60%, which isn't terrible either, considering it launched in a bear run. Now, it didn't launch in the hardest part of a bear run, but, well, maybe it did actually, that's up for debate, but it's not been doing terribly considering the circumstances, where something like ABAX or Cardano has dropped a similar amount within this time frame. And they are, like, you know, within the top 20. Arbitrum is, I think, ranked 40 in the crypto space. We're currently trading at 95 cents, and I'll get into sort of shorter price term action later on, but I first want to recognize that Arbitrum has done very well the last 2 weeks or so. It's had a very strong pump, like the rest of the crypto space. Bitcoin led the way and all the alts followed. We'll have a look at the Bitcoin pair later and see how well it's done, but it's done well on its USD pair these last 2 weeks. However, to give a more bearish outlook on Arbitrum, I do think we are in for a bit of a pullback. And well, first of all, I think this is because if we look at how Arbitrum's moved, I've drawn these white lines to make it just a lot easier to follow the longer term movements, if you will, like the month movements or 2 month movements, whatever, 1.5 month movements. We can see Arbitrum has a big pump and then a big sell-off usually, and then after that big pump and big sell-off it has a big pump, a small pump and a small sell-off, and it often sort of gets like halfway between these sort of support and resistance lines. So we can see Arbitrum has a big pump, big sell-off, small pump, small sell-off, and then what it did last time as well was a big pump, big sell-off, small pump, small sell-off. And we can sort of see maybe that this might be a big pump followed by a big sell-off, maybe. And oftentimes the big sell-offs do more damage than the big pumps fix, if you get me. Like, we end up lower, and it's the same with the small pumps, except for the last small pump. The last small pump we didn't actually go lower than where we started, which is unusual because every pump Arbitrum has had, it's always gone lower ultimately. If you look at the triangle shape, it's always gone lower, except for this last one where it didn't put in a low. It didn't even go like a cent below where it was. It literally didn't put in a low. And it then also rallied very strongly, and we can see it sort of did a double bounce off this 76 cent level. This is very interesting. It sort of shows that maybe the pattern, well, it shows that the pattern isn't being followed 100%. So how far it deviates from the pattern depends a lot. Again, you can't really tell. I personally think it will start to deviate from this pattern as we go on in the next few months. I'm pricing in a generally bad crypto space up until March, and after March I would switch to a more bullish long-term outlook. Not that I'm not long-term bullish now already, but I think in these next few months crypto is not going to be great. I could even see this sort of as the last pump before we have a few months of you know, pain. And during this pump as well, during these like 2 weeks, I was thinking to myself, I was kind of getting like, oh well, maybe this is the end of the bear market. Maybe this is the, you know, maybe we've broken above it. Bitcoin's at 35k. I don't think we're out of the bear market. I think Bitcoin's performing really well, but the reason we're not out of the bear market, in my opinion, is because other cryptos haven't really followed. And I know that sounds strange because, you know, obviously these altcoins and Ethereum have done well, but they haven't kept up with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's done well, and these altcoins have done good, but now we're sort of at a time where this hype has worn off. We've had 2 weeks basically of solid Bitcoin price action, and the alts aren't catching up yet because there's no new money coming into the system. So it's just turned into basically another one of these liquidity grabs, in my opinion, or I think it will turn into. Because what happens every time Bitcoin pumps in the bear market is all the altcoins go up with it, and then the altcoins lose their peg on the Bitcoin pair. You can't really see this here, but Bitcoin pumps, altcoins pump, Arbitrum pumps, Bitcoin dumps, Bitcoin returns to maybe where it was, sort of like a triangle here. It returns to its previous low or maybe a bit above. The altcoins drop well below, and we see that on its Bitcoin pair, and we'll have a look at its Bitcoin pair in a minute, but we see that very often. Back to this sort of triangle pattern as well, we see that we've hit this peak. I want to have a look at these peaks as well because they're very interesting. Our first one was at about $1.80. Okay, then we went down to $1.35. Okay, so we've got about a 45-cent difference there. We've now gone down to 105, so that's a 30-cent difference there. So we're dropping, like, our range, is decreasing by 15 cents as we drop, each time we drop. So the movements are becoming less volatile, if you will. So if we drop basically another 15, how far are we off from here? 35 cents. We have 30 cents of a difference here. If we take off 15, it's been decreasing roughly 15 cents each time we drop. If we drop 15 cents from where we are, that brings us down to a sort of 90-cent range. I could definitely see that being where we pump to if we have a pullback, which I think we will, because again, we've been rejected off this level, and we've oscillated within this range pretty accurately for, 7 months, give or take. If we have a pullback, I think that's where we will end up, at a 90 cents level. Whether that happens in a few weeks, whether that happens in 3 months, I don't know. But if we actually pull this in a bit so we can get more of a look, we can see that if Arbitrum, I'm just going to stretch this out a bit longer. If Arbitrum continues to stay within this range and it does break below this support, which it put in before on its double bounce, if it does break below this, we could see Arbitrum go as low as 60 cents. And I don't think that's too unlikely, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, if we have a look at how far Arbitrum falls each time after a big pump, we see its first one, it dropped 43%. After its second big pump, it dropped another 43%. If we go to here and say, take this as our height, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to move this again. If we go to here and take it as our height, if we come down to this level at here, that's another 43%. So this 43% number keeps playing out. We keep seeing this general triangular movement, one big triangle, one small triangle, but ultimately the triangles end up lower than where they started, with the exception of this one triangle, but I think that will be broken. We might have a bit of a stronger support at this level. It might take us, another week to get through it. We might sort of bounce or dribble along this line until we eventually spill over and break down. But I do think ultimately Arbitrum will break down, and we will put in one more lower low on this orange support, in my opinion. And hell, maybe we could even go lower, I'm not too sure. But I think this pump that we've seen in the crypto space, the only thing that's made everyone super bullish is that it's Bitcoin that's pumped so much. If we go back to the beginning of the year, Bitcoin pumped from 18k to 30k. It did a 12k move. Here it's done a 7k move, and people are ecstatic and saying bull market's over. People said the same thing back there, and we ultimately went lower. Well, we did go lower on basically every single altcoin pair that's in the top 100. You just can't say that that isn't true. So the fact that we've had another Bitcoin pump here, I think it's a good sign generally. It means that there's hope in the market, and it shows that it has life. It's not just bleeding out forever and never going to pump again. I think it shows that it does have energy or it will have energy, but right now it's just another pump from Bitcoin and also following. But ultimately, I think it's a way of knocking these alts off their Bitcoin pairs. And speaking of Bitcoin pairs, let's have a look at Arbitrums. We can see it's basically the same. And if we have a look at these 2 weeks, Arbitrum has basically just bled to Bitcoin. We can see we've had like a couple of green days here, but ultimately it hasn't added up to anything really. So, you know, it's kind of just, I mean, it speaks for itself. This is like, if people think, I know that Bitcoin leads the bull market. And at the start of the bull market, usually Bitcoin does well, and then alts will follow, or alts will do well at the same time as Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin will do better once that alt starts to drop. And and after the halving, usually alts start to pick up as well on their Bitcoin pairs during the halving year. First of all, we're not in the halving year, so, you know, saying that doesn't really affect me. We've still got 2 months left of not in the halving year. And secondly, every time we see a Bitcoin pump, these altcoins just lose value on their Bitcoin pair. Like again, like literally the last 2 weeks, 16th of October, we saw Bitcoin do amazingly. That's about 2 weeks, give or take. In fact, we can even go like 3 weeks. We can go 3 weeks. Last 3 weeks, Arbitrum is lower than where it was on its Bitcoin pair, even though Bitcoin has had this parabolic rally where it's gone up 7, 8K, whatever it is. Arbitrum is lower than where it was, and it sort of tested where it was. It came up to this sort of 3,000 Satoshi level, but it got rejected and now it's back down. And we've seen this 1,000 times. Even where Arbitrum has done well on its Bitcoin pair, eventually it just has 2 days of terrible price action against Bitcoin, or Bitcoin does pumps and Arbitrum doesn't, and it loses all its value. Then we get a few days of green, and then Arbitrum just like big sell-offs again. And again, every time we get a Bitcoin pump like this in the last few weeks, it's a good way for Bitcoin to gain dominance. So Bitcoin pumps, altcoins pump as well, but then when Bitcoin starts to drop, altcoins collapse, they just disappear. And this is what we've seen Arbitrum do time after time. And again, just looking at the general trend. I mean, if we look at from peak to trough, we can see that it's a drop of 60%. Again, that's 60% on an asset that's dropped 60%. Again, so it's kind of what I've said ever since this channel was launched, that during a bear market, if you're going to be exposed to crypto, have it in Bitcoin. Because again, you get these upsides by Bitcoin that are much bigger than all of these altcoin upsides. Bitcoin rallied like whatever it was, something like 20% over the last 2 weeks. More probably, I think more. I'm actually not sure. It's something I need to check. I haven't been too well. I've been very busy basically this last week, and I've been kind of zoned out of crypto. But Bitcoin's pumped amazingly. Arbitrum has pumped well, but why would you take the risk of holding Arbitrum and going down all bear market, or Avalanche or Cardano or XRP or Link or Litecoin, whatever? Why would you take the risk of holding them when you can just hold Bitcoin and retain more value on your USD pair anyway, and then sell that Bitcoin, say now even, for all your altcoins and get more of your altcoin? That's something that I just think is, something that maybe more people should consider, instead of just being perma-bullish on their altcoin and holding their altcoin through thick and thin. And I think sort of loyalty to these assets is good and it's bad. I mean, I'm glad that people are passionate about the projects and people are really involved and, you know, using them, and I think it's great. I think it's really great for crypto. But I think financially it's not the best idea. Maybe I would have a small bit of an altcoin if I was really interested in it, so that I could use the ecosystem, so I could do whatever. Maybe I could play a game on it, whatever. But I wouldn't have the majority of my portfolio below 20%, definitely below 10% probably. Majority Bitcoin or USD. But anyway, I'm kind of waffling at the moment. Basically, Arbitrum not doing well. If we swap back to its USD, I did want to show this as well. if we pull up a Fibonacci and sort of layer it up, we can also see where Arbitrum has found resistance and support regularly. I mean, we sort of launched this 0.7 level, bounced off the 0.38 level, found a peak, dropped all the way back down to this lower band, got rejected here, dropped below this band, wicked below, but came back above. Sort of did the same thing here, had a wick above and came down below, and then tested this sort of lowest level of the fib retracement, had a bounce off this lowest level again, and then we've now been rejected off the 0.236 level. I think it makes sense that Arbitrum does go down. There's a lot of indicators saying that Arbitrum will go down. A lot of this Bitcoin pump has slowed off. I know there's a lot of talk about an ETF approval for Bitcoin, but again, the crypto space pumps off liquidity. If there's lots of money flowing around, it goes into riskier assets. Bitcoin is riskier assets, and it goes up. And then when liquidity starts to go down, it's pulled out of riskier assets, it's pulled out of Bitcoin, selling happens, Bitcoin goes down. And in turn, the altcoin market goes down even more because they're riskier, they're further along the risk curve. There's still not much new money really being made. Like, the Fed isn't printing. Its rate hikes are not rate. Its interest rates are still up. It's 5.5 or whatever. And I mean, the bond market is pricing in June for when we start to see a pivot, for when we see rate cuts. That's still 8 months away before we see potentially more money flowing into the market. I'm not saying crypto can't go up during that time, but what I am saying is we can't have a bull run, in my opinion, until we have this sort of extra liquidity in the system to flow into alts, to flow into riskier assets. And this pump has just been like one of 1,000 others, really. Like, Bitcoin's done well. How long will it keep doing well? I don't know. But a lot of these altcoins, and I've noticed it as well, a lot of these altcoins are at their 90-day, where they were 90 days ago, roughly. And it's sort of like, we've done like a U or a W even. We can see the W here. And like, it's kind of telling, well, it's kind of, in my brain I would be wary, because like Warren Buffett said, be fearful when others are greedy, greedy when others are fearful. Everyone's greedy at the moment. Everyone is greedy at the moment. And also, we've had basically a month or whatever of kind of good price action. I mean, let me just check how many days. This is Arbitrum, but it's basically done 2 weeks bang on good price action. A lot of these alts have been, you know, sort of not doing poorly for a week before this or 2 weeks before this, and then they've had this pump. And I'm thinking, 2 weeks of only up in a bear market does not sound sustainable to me. And now that we've had just this first sort of pullback at this level here that's got a lot of resistance lined up with this fib level, I'm saying, okay, maybe this is just where we rally to. Again, we have a big pump, a big sell-off, a little pump, a little sell-off, a big pump, a big sell-off. It's up to you guys to decide what you think will happen, but ultimately that's what I think will happen. I think that's the way it'll go. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. If you liked the video, please subscribe, comment down below what you think of Arbitrum. Where's it headed? Is this just another fake out, or are we sort of good to go now? Is it only up? Let us know down in the comments. Are you holding any Arbitrum, or are you just shorting, or what's going on? Thanks very much, guys. Take care and peace.